Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Courtney Yockey, and I'm with the F&M Regional Growth Alliance, and here today representing the Business Navigator Alliance of South Central and Southeastern Illinois. We have an excellent presentation stored for you. Today, we are diving into the topic of residential development, and more specifically, ongoing efforts to increase housing in Crawford County, Illinois. We have a panel of local community and business leaders, which are involved in these initiatives to help guide us through today's discussion. Today, joining us, we have Risa Shaner, the Executive Director with the Crawford County Development Association, Denise Strobe, which is the Treasurer for the City of Robinson, Teresa Fielder, the Mayor for the Village of Oblong, and Bill Burke, Chairman for the Crawford County Board. So before we get started, what is the Business Navigator Alliance of South Central and Southeastern Illinois? Well, we are a 6-county regional collaboration working through a small business community navigator grant. Our partners include Angela Griffin with Coals Together, Lori Miner with the Sullivan, Illinois Chamber and Economic Development, Risa Shaner with the Crawford County Development Association, Nora Swalls with the Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce, Bob Colvin and Freddie Schmitty with the Paris Economic Development Corporation, and then myself, Courtney Yockey, with the F&M Regional Growth Alliance. This group is charged with professional outreach and technical assistance for local, state, and federal programs. And our mission is to ensure that small businesses in our region are competitive in applying for necessary resources. And our goal is to position you for success by accelerating business recovery and growth. You see the map on the side of your screen where the Business Navigator Alliance is located. Today's webinar is part of a series of business webinars we are hosting each month. These webinars are typically scheduled for the last Thursday of each month, so please mark your calendars. Do visit www.ilbusinessnavigators.com, that's navigators with an S, and sign up for our newsletter to stay informed. We also host various outreach events, office hours, and offer one-on-one technical assistance. Again, visit ilbusinessnavigators.com to learn more. And we will be posting the recording from today's presentation and additional supportive materials on the website as well. At the conclusion of today's webinar, you should receive a short 5-question survey. We hope you complete the survey. We would love to hear your feedback on making improvements to these webinars and future topics. So to get us started off, for the Crawford County Housing, a community building together, building stronger, we have Denise Strobe. Denise was born and raised in Robinson. Denise is a graduate of the Robinson High School with an associate's degree from Lakeland College and a Bachelor of Science in Business degree from Eastern Illinois University with a major in finance and a minor in economics. She was appointed the city treasurer in August of 2000. Denise holds a national certification as a certified public funds investment manager from the Association of Public Treasurers of the United States and Canada, and is a member of the Illinois Municipal Treasurers Association. Additionally, Denise has been the TIF administrator for the city of Robinson since 2010. We also have Teresa Fielder. Teresa is the mayor of the Village of Oblong and has held the position since 2017. Teresa worked at Marathon Petroleum for 17 years as an operator. She is a member of the Oblong Chamber of Commerce and serves on the Crawford County Development Association Board. During Mayor Fielder's tenure, with the support of a community-minded board, Oblong has successfully obtained and managed both CDBG and OSSA grants, pushed for cleanup of dilapidated structures, implemented a dumpster agreement to help residents pay for dumpsters to assist with cleanup, and developed a Hometown Pride Award to recognize residents as good neighbors. Bill Burke is the county chairman for the Crawford County, and Bill grew up in Olney, Illinois until the 5th grade when his family moved to Oblong. Bill is a 2000 graduate of Oblong High School and a 2005 graduate of the Missouri Auction School. Bill has been employed in a variety of different jobs in his career. In 2009, he went to work full-time for Bob Fiskus Auction and Appraisals. And in 2012, Bill opened Furniture and More in Oblong. Additionally, Bill opened United Country Burke Auctions and Realty in 2013. Bill is a graduate of Leadership Crawford County and has served on the Oblong Village Board. He is a longtime Crawford County ESDA member and serves as the current Crawford County Board Chairman. And last but not least, we have Risa Shader. Risa is an impactful and dedicated business leader and manager with more than 30 years of executive experience, delivering results in creating and building new companies and teams from the ground up. She has successfully managed corporations ranging from 2 million to 65 million across several locations, developing capital plans, purchasing high value assets, and identifying gaps to improve operations and client service excellence. Risa is a strong communicator and negotiator working with regulatory agencies to achieve practical and tangible results, and has conducted numerous public and media workshops and training presentations. And Risa, I believe you're up first for today's presentation. Are you prepared to present?
Yes, I am. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining me. And I especially want to thank Denise, Mayor T, and Bill for letting me take them out of their comfort zone and agreeing to join this effort. Because what we're doing in Crawford County has never been done before. And when we learned of the opportunities that were coming to Crawford County in 2022, I sat with my board, 21 members, and they said, hey, this has never happened in Crawford County. What do we need to do as a community? What do we need to do to support it? So we will tell you that story today. And it's still going, and I hope it never stops, because when we stop moving forward, Robinson and Crawford County and all of our villages move backwards. So we want to move our community forward, and we are building together and building stronger. Today, I have 3 goals for you as you listen, take notes. Number 1, learn that numbers matter. Number 2, you're going to learn about some community solutions in Southeastern Illinois, what worked, what went wrong, and areas for improvement. You're also going to see what we've done to do better. And maybe my goal, ultimate goal, is that you, as you hear us talk today about Crawford County, that you can apply that to your community. Robinson and Crawford County, Illinois, we are a border county along the state of Indiana. We are also the home to 3 Fortune 500 companies. Courtney, if you could go to the next slide, please. Today, we're going to talk about housing needs and what we are doing as a community to fill that gap, the number of employees that commute here each day, a little something about home sales and housing potential and how that fits for our community, and maybe plant a few seeds for you, how that works for you. Courtney, next slide, please. In 2022, Hershey Chocolate announced that they were going to expand $155 million project, and they were going to make it to where that 10 of the major Hershey brands would be manufactured solely in Robinson. What a huge opportunity for us, adding another 155,000 square feet to the property. Right now, Hershey employs 750, and we are looking at their employee base being over 1,000. We have 3 Fortune 500 companies here in Crawford County: Marathon Petroleum, Hershey Chocolate, and Dana Corporation. And when we learned this news, I immediately went and met with our industry leaders, the top 20 businesses in our community, and just asked them 3 simple questions. What are your needs? How can we help? And where do you see the gaps? What I learned was the main leading causes that they found having trouble attracting people to live and work in Crawford County was the lack of available workforce housing for young professionals and family, a shortage of childcare, And the other thing that they mentioned was an aging workforce. Little did we know when we started that quest that we had an attrition rate of about 11 to 12% in our community. So if you look at the profile sheet that is on the screen, you'll see just kind of some fast facts, and that we are a community that a lot of our people drive here. 20% of the people drive here every day. We have 6,187 people employed, but of that, 20% are driving here. We also have about 30% of the population that are making over 75,000 a year, but we have the majority of our workforce household income at less than 75,000. So again, we saw this as an opportunity for Crawford County to generate income and to be a leader. Another thing, and Courtney, I believe you're going to post this profile sheet on the recording, but we know that Crawford County each day has over 1 million gallons in water as a reservoir. We're right next to the Wabash River, have great water resources, and that also the city of Robinson operates at about 50% capacity for their sewer system. So we knew that we had room to grow. But what happened as we delved into what does it look like to support our business and industry, Marathon, Hershey, as they had needs, what did that look like? And so the next thing that we did was we created, and let me back up a little bit. Courtney, if you could go to the next slide. I'm sorry, I apologize. Also, Crawford County, just a little bit about Crawford County. We have a county forest preserve, 3 golf courses, a great park system. Oblong has a lake where we'll talk about some housing going in there. And in Robinson is the home of the Heath Candy Bar, and we have a museum here. Next slide, please. Another fact that I wanted to point out is the segmented trades and industry sectors that we have. You see there on the left, the Southeastern Illinois, but then you see Crawford counties, and you see just the visual of we are mainly a manufacturing-based community. And as we looked at those numbers, and maybe you have those for yourself, but as we looked at those, we determined what are the supports that we need to support the infrastructure coming in. Next up, Courtney. So why does Crawford County need housing, and how are we going to do it? This is where I need to thank a couple of people that have been really key in the process. Bill Sanford has been a great supporter and has helped us attract many developers to the areas. I also want to thank Brittany Gibson with the village of Diederich. All of our villages have met with her and have given us a model to use. And then also Mayor Mike Scheimer has been key in helping us put these together. But we had a meeting with all of the community leaders and some developers, and they said, you need a housing study. You need a profile sheet. So we called a meeting together, and all of the communities contributed to a housing study. And you can see here what I've mentioned, employees driving to work, the homes that were for sale, and then also the need for affordable housing. Next slide, please. You'll also see that there had been a lack of construction. And again, this is where numbers count, where we realized we had a problem, but we didn't know when new construction had happened. And when you look at this graph, it's very easy to understand. When we were trying to attract young professionals to our community, they would say, the houses here look like my parents and my grandparents. So we had to look at ways to overcome that because there had not been any new construction for quite some time. Next slide, please. So at this point, all of our community leaders, we banded together and the city of Robinson, they contracted for Tracy Cross and Associates to do a study, and each one of the villages contributed their pro rata share based on their census count. And these are, again, the facts that we learned. But most shocking is that last bullet point, that in order to keep up with the gap that we currently had in new residents, we needed to come up with new homes, new residential units of a little over 200 each year in the next 5 years. Very quickly, we decided that was a very heavy lift, and it was going to take the whole community working together to service our community. Next slide, please. At this point, a lot of our community leaders began to see the need for their TIF districts, how those should look, how those should change. The village of Oblong began aggressively pursuing purchasing some real estate, as did the city of Robinson. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Denise Joe. And Denise, tell us what's going on in Robinson.
Well, good morning, everybody. Like she said, I'm Denise Jobe. I'm the treasurer for the city of Robinson. And I'm going to talk with you today about how the city of Robinson has utilized tax increment financing to boost development within our city. The first TIF district that we created is known as the West Robinson Industrial TIF. The industrial park had sat vacant for many years, and we created this district back in May of 2000 to try and help develop that area. So since its inception, the initial EAV of that district has doubled from about 2.3 million initially to well over 4.4 million currently. And as Risa explained with the Hershey expansion, there's ongoing development out there all the time. There's been private investment of over $6 million, and these numbers are based on last year's report. We've had even more since. 6 million in public investment, 1 million in our investment, which would be all the utilities. The city placed, we had a road build out there, put all the utilities in, so it was move-in ready, basically. And grants for developers to help with their infrastructure. We've got 3 businesses out there right now that we've assisted with their development, and all of the lots in the industrial park are now sold. The second TIF district we created is the downtown Robinson area TIF, and it was created in October 2001. It encompasses not only our square in downtown Robinson, but extends out to the east, west, north, and south a little bit to include more businesses in that area. Like I said, it was created in October of 2001, and the initial EAV was 2.6 million, and it's now well over 5 million. We've had private investment of over $1 million, public investment of over $1 million. Some examples of some of that have been grants to business owners for structural improvements, facade restoration, roof replacements, and currently on our square, next slide, Courtney, I'll show some pictures here. Currently on our square, there's only 2 buildings that haven't utilized TIF funding. And you can look at the top left. All of those have had facade and roof replacements. There's currently tuck pointing going on the south side and on the west side. The west side of the square is also where the Chamber of Commerce is at. All new roof replacement, facade, entryways, new windows. So a lot of this wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for TIF. The downtown went from really a dreary, dilapidated area to very vibrant and renewed, and I believe there's only 1 empty spot on our square right now. We just renewed both of those 2 TIF districts. They were reaching their 23-year life, and we just extended them both for another 12 years for a total of 35. So after realizing the need for housing, we decided to create a third TIF district, which we creatively decided to call TIF 3. I think we were running out of ideas at that point, but this is the city's first residential TIF, and it was created to support a new housing subdivision. So the city last fall purchased around 16 acres of undeveloped farm ground to begin a housing development similar to what Dietrich did. The city will be putting in the infrastructure, the roads and all the utilities, and then we'll be selling the lots for $5,000 a piece, which actually starts tomorrow. If anybody's interested in a lot, please stop by City Hall. But this, we knew that this was needed, and this was our way to help contribute to the housing shortage. We also extended that district up to the north to include an existing subdivision, to be able to utilize those TIF funds to help with. There'd been a lot of condemnation, dilapidation in that neighborhood, and some utility improvements as well. In conjunction with that, we also created a residential enterprise zone. The city's had enterprise zones since 1990. Bill, I believe, is going to talk to you some more about how residential enterprise zones assist, but that's how the city has started with our housing and boosting all types of development in the city. I think I'm going to turn it over to Mayor T, aren't I?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor T, are you prepared?
I am. Thank you, Denise. Thanks, Courtney. Our story is a little bit like Robinson. We have right now one existing TIF, which encompasses our downtown and our Dollar General. We had one TIF that actually, what I'd like to talk about today, was in an acreage, 33 acres. And in 1999, a developer from Chicago and his business partner purchased that 33 acres. And it's a northeast side of Oblong, and just to the east of that is our beautiful park that we have. And with that came a promise of a subdivision. We agreed to put that area in a TIF for them. And at the end of that 23 years, there were only 4 houses built, and there were 14 additional lots sold to individuals whose property adjoined that TIF area, and they were not enforced with any covenants by him. So those landowners actually purchased those lots to keep people from building beside them. So since the village didn't own those lots, we couldn't enforce those covenants. But after 23 long years, that TIF expired, and it was perfectly timed for when this housing study came back that we needed housing. So our board decided that we would let that TIF end and we would purchase that 33 acres. We then put it in what is our third TIF as well. And we're in the final stages of getting that done. Our local banks, I just have to brag on them. They have been fully supported of our growth. Case in point, the Village of Oblong was able to issue a tax anticipation warrant loan for that 33 acres from First Robinson Savings Bank. And they in turn split that with our other local bank, First National Bank. We basically pay the interest up to 85% of the EAV, and then we pay that balance off with each incoming tax money as each home is built. So we borrowed the money locally for that without cost of a bond. And the paperwork is required, of course, a little bit more than any other thing, but until we don't need those funds anymore, it's a relatively simple process for us. At this point, we have 2 lots sold, And one home is being constructed on one of the lot that was purchased from a previous owner. And once it's sold, there will be another home going up right after that. So that's kind of the story of our TIF and our progress toward housing. We also have a downtown TIF fund that from our first TIF that goes down through the downtown, we reinvest money downtown. On your screen is some pictures of what we've given back. We give back a grant for $3,500 or so back to business owners, and you can see some of the improvements that they've used for that. And so far, we have given back $92,000 back into our downtown. And so we're really proud of that. And it's close to about 30 projects that the downtown businesses have asked for. I think I will hand it off to Billy for the next slide.
She's all yours, Bill.
All right, good morning. I'm setting my clock so I don't run too far over.
We're doing good.
So I get to talk about the residential enterprise zone and what we are doing as a county to try and bring that to life and the rest. So the city of Robinson already has a residential enterprise zone taken off. I would say they're probably within, I'm going to say probably 60 days, Denise, of probably having that done. Pretty close. It'll be done before the end of the year for sure.
Yes, that's correct.
So once the city of Robinson's is done, we are looking to put an amendment onto that to then go to the city of Oblong, the city of Hudsonville, and the city of Palestine. And the reason behind that is we're hoping that we can take a residential enterprise zone approach to this, go into some of the blighted areas, some of the not so great areas. With that residential enterprise zone, we'll be able to take a 6.25% sales tax. That's what Crawford County is at this time. And we'll be able to use that 6.25% sales tax to give our contractors a reason to want to build in that area. Say, hey, here's your reasoning. And then once they're done and they get ready to sell that property, hopefully it will be able to have a tax incentive for up to 5 years to give that purchaser a reason to want to buy that property, maybe in that not so great area, to start building them areas back up. The housing crunch in Crawford County has been large for a long time. I actually sell real estate for a living. A few other realtors from Crawford County are on this webinar. There's no houses for sale, but that's the problem all across Southern Illinois right now, but especially really bad in Crawford County. With the people coming in, you know, the TIF districts can't take advantage fully of the residential enterprise zone, but they also can take advantage of the sales tax incentive. So it will also help them contractors in them areas as long as they are in that area. So our goal for the residential enterprise zone is as soon as the city of Robinson has their part done, the county is actually funding it for the other 3 communities to try and help the whole county grow and keep everybody on tap, because our school systems here are great. We just need more kids in the seats and another reason to keep growing. So I'll turn it over to Risa.
Thank
Go ahead,
you.
Teresa.
Thank you, team. Great. This slide gives a story of what some of the hard work is doing, how some of the hard decisions work is paying off, and the dots are being connected. We want housing here, but we also have to attract developers. We have to attract new homes. An interesting piece for those on the webinar is that the cost of living in Robinson, Illinois is considerably less than our collar towns across the state border. You can live in Robinson, Illinois for about 5 to 7% cheaper a year than you can across the board, and you don't have to pay for gas. Our average commute time in Crawford County to work is about 13 minutes. So we're trying to make these places available and put them in place for our community. Next slide, please. to Bill's point, there has not been any housing for many years. One of the things that was identified in the housing study is the need for elder housing. A lot of people have lived in their existing homes and haven't sold. So we believe that there will be movement, that there's going to be a shift overall in Crawford County for smaller homes. I probably would be very interested in a smaller home at this point in my life, and less upkeep. And then also we know that what young professionals are looking for is different than maybe a family, and fitting those needs. For example, if someone just graduated from college and they're looking for an engineering position, they probably don't want to own a lawnmower. So we need to have townhouses or those type of housings available for them. Next slide, please. Mayor T pointed out the value of our community banks, and I know there's been some in the chat, but we have a variety of programs that our community banks are offering. And this is one advantage of the CCDA board. We have community banks on our board, so they hear firsthand a lot of what is happening in our community. But there are programs being tailored to help those wanting to move here and find housing loans, down payment loan assistance. Again, it's based on individual eligibility, but our community banks are also supporting this effort. Next slide, please. So here's the elephant in the room. What's it going to cost? Who's going to be there to afford it? And I know Denise and I have had this conversation, and you know, I remember the first home that I owned and got a mortgage on it was 12%, and I thought that was cheap. And now we're not at 12%, but it is high. So we're trying to look at, with our banks, what the communities are offering with the low cost of the lots. Denise mentioned $5,000 a lot for the city of Robinson's. Oblong has their own plan. And I just want to add a point here that each of the villages, Robinson and Oblong, have created covenants to go along with the sale of their properties, so that they don't have somebody buying buildings and not building houses to help the community. So each community has covenants, and those are enforceable. The village of Oblong does not have zoning, but the city of Robinson does. So working with each of the communities to find those things that fit best. We're looking for contractors. We have some already engaged to work at a higher level home. We're also looking at a potential for housing in our airport facility, but also new complexes, apartment complexes. But we know there will be a change 5 years from now. The change of housing in Crawford County, with the momentum we have now, will be very different. Next slide, please. So this is a quote that Bill Sanford gave, and it's just a really good one. You know, it's easy to sit around the coffee shop or around the water cooler or in your office and talk about the problems. But Crawford County is a group, as you've heard today, of doers, seeing a problem, finding the numbers, digging down into the weeds. What do your numbers look like? And looking for a solution. So it's brought a renewed optimism for us, but we also know we've got a lot of work to do, and we're looking for new ways, new thoughts every day to keep going, but we couldn't do it alone. We're doing it as a community. Next slide. And next one. Next.
Is it showing up on your screen? The Walt Disney quote?
It did on mine.
Okay. And then you're ready for the thank you now?
Yeah, we're just here to help and support our community. We don't want to be talkers. We want to be doers. Crawford County is somewhat of a geographic anomaly. We have 3 Fortune 500 companies. We're on the border. And so we want to make a difference in our community. We believe that Crawford County is a great place to live and a great place to call home. So Courtney, I'll turn it over to you for Q&A.
Thank you, Risa. And Risa, Denise, Teresa, and Bill, wonderful presentation. Wow, a very heartfelt thank you for educating us today and to really tell your story and where you guys have been and where you are now and how you're moving through the future. I mean, they say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is now. And these are long-term initiatives that you guys have engaged with, and definitely initiatives that have been worked on in the past, but being proactive and pushing forward. So most fortunate for your communities that they have good leaders that are stepping up and moving forward and trying to position the community for growth, but then also to be proactive in that process as well. So thank you for educating us and running through the presentation. I loved hearing the tools that the city of Robinson has used, the village of Oblong has used as well, and how you guys have given back. And then Bill, how you're taking it from a countywide approach, and Risa really being the glue that's tying it all together. So we're going to go ahead and enter into a Q&A session here on the back side of this, and got a few minutes to still run through. We scheduled these for an hour. Had some questions come in. Just a friendly reminder that the presentation will be made available next week. A link to the copy of the recording will be sent out. The presentation slides will be sent out as well to the email address that you registered through. And then they'll be available for download and to be able to view on the ilbusinessnavigators.com, our website there. For our first question, and maybe I'll throw this to Risa, and by all means, we'll go around the room on some of these questions. We've had quite a few come in, but try to direct it to the appropriate person, but please provide your input as well. But Risa, how long did it take for the housing needs study to be completed?
About 4 months, I think, Denise. Is that right? I want to say 3 to 4 months.
That sounds about right. Yes.
3 to 4 months. And what was involved in that process? I think definitely something that is a lot of communities are interested in, or a lot of communities would love to know that info. And so, and not running through it before, maybe give us a little insight. How was it? What was involved in that process over those 4 months?
Mayor T, I think you had a conversation with them. What was your experience? I know I did. So unmute yourself if you would.
Thank you, Risa.
There's that on?
Mhm.
Okay. I think that they just took a lot of our information from our census. We also took them around the town, just gave them a tour. They kind of asked questions as, has this always been like this? How long has this been like this? We gave them a list of homes since I've been the mayor. We kind of went after some dilapidated housing and just eyesores. So they wanted to know how many empty lots we had compared to how many lots had a home and a family on them. And it's that type of information. Each village or city was different, but yet the same. They would look to see what our needs were. And with that came a little booklet that kind of described our county in a whole,
Awesome.
Described all of us together, but also pulled out a little things from each of us on what our best assets were. For us, one of the things was our park and our lake and camping, and it was just a really good snapshot of our whole county, and it was extremely valuable information. It was verification of what we had thought was going on, but yet it totally validated it, and we knew we were on the right pathway.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yes, most certainly a lot of powerful information there, and gives you the data that you need to be able to make educated decisions and moving forward. And especially when it comes to the economic justifications and of using public funds. So who led the study for you? Who did you guys use for the study?
It was Tracy Cross and Associates. And Denise, did you have a similar experience to Mayor T or anything different?
Most of the work was done by our zoning administrator, but very similar. Used a lot of census data for demographics and such. And I also want to point out too, I mean, all the communities contributed to the cost of this one. But the city is currently working with the Illinois Housing Development Authority on a housing stock survey. And this is a free resource that a lot of communities probably don't know about. Something to take note of if you're interested in doing some of that stuff too.
Yeah, and an excellent survey to run through with IDA, the Illinois Housing Development Authority. Glad to hear that you guys are using that.
Yeah.
The city of Effingham has ran through that as well. I'd encourage those that are with us in the webinar currently, or maybe listening to this on the recording, to investigate what IDA and then what DCO, the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity for the state of Illinois, has to offer from housing development initiatives as well, and various programs. But excellent point, and really kind of segues into the next question. Denise, you had noted that all the communities participated, but were there were other initiatives, and there've been long-term things that you guys have been working on. Have you had some communities that did not want to participate in your guys' endeavors?
No, I don't believe. I think everybody's participated. Everybody in the county leaders of each community of all want to see growth. You know, that obviously helps everyone. So everybody's looking at housing throughout all of Crawford County.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And having that coordinated approach and that good communication, especially good communication up front, is very important. And you know, spending some time with this group and putting this webinar together and the presentation together, you can definitely see that you guys work well together and keep up good communication. And so just a note to everybody else that's listening, you know, take from their experience here and really look at what can be accomplished when we're willing to work together. There was a question in the chat, and we most certainly have good representation from public officials for the village and the city and the county on the panel here. But this one is towards the school, which is also a public entity. It is. How have the schools reacted to residential TIFs, and do you share any of the increment with them? And so if somebody, Denise, if you want to start that out, and maybe Teresa will go to you for your input, and we'll get Bill thrown in there too.
Sure. We had a joint review board committee meeting, which is a representative of all of the taxing bodies that were within our new TIF. And had a meeting about what we wanted to do, why we wanted to create a residential TIF, and everybody was extremely on board, because there again, the more houses, the more people, the more kids, and the schools are always looking to get more kids, as Bill said, in the seats. And so I think residential TIFs, by doing that, is going to again help everyone and help the school system. This is our first residential. We haven't had any income yet because we just created it a couple months ago. We don't currently share any increment with them, but we don't have any money coming in yet either. So
it's a long-term plan. I always say TIF and really a lot of economic development tools are initiatives by the local communities. It's foregoing short-term gains to secure long-term growth, long-term revenue, and it allows you to continue to do the things that you need to do to grow and offer public safety, fire, fire and police, infrastructure improvements. So a lot of auxiliary benefits in addition to just growing the community as a whole. Teresa, any additional comments or something to complement that? How was it in the village there?
It's about the same. Of course, our school did have the TIF of the 23 years before, you know, so they were kind of used to that. We did get a new administration kind of at the school. They were a little iffy, but they are extremely valued in Oblong, and they know
Good.
that, and they know that. You know, we've had some chats, you know, just out of concern, but they know that we're in this together, and we've even talked to Moran Development is who is doing our TIF. Absolutely, there will be ways that we will be able to help the schools, and we've assured them of that. We have a great working relationship with them, and we don't see there's going to be any bad come of that.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. So Bill, maybe moving from considered a micro view of this for the individual communities to macro of the county as a whole. Any inputs for additional school districts or just the various communities throughout the county?
So my input, and I've been involved in some of the talks in Oblong with Mayor T, just because I live in the Oblong community, so I'm a little that one. But you know, communication's key to all of it. Sitting down and having them conversations that aren't always fun and saying, hey, here's what we're looking to do. Those that aren't very diversified in TIFs, like Oblong's TIF, the school actually touches it and is in it. So they qualify for the same grants as a regular business. So we had them conversations that there was other ways around being able to help them on some of that. If this TIF district did take off, that they could get some of the funding to help them with the school that was inside the TIF and this and that. So really hiring a company that knows what they're doing. Jared and Moran, in my opinion, the county's hired them to help us with the enterprise zone. I think that they've been great consultants and really helped us walk through a lot of these tough questions and how to get there. So schools are very concerned because you are talking, they're a large part of your tax bill, and trying to get them comfortable and understand what you're doing can take a little time.
Understood. So that good communication up front, willingness to work together too, which is not always found in local government, unfortunately, but you can see the product and the results of it. So
Courtney, real quick, just
yes, sir.
Quick thing. Whenever I got on the county board, we started a community involvement committee. So with our community involvement committee, we have a meeting quarterly. We teamed up with CCDA, with RISA. So we bring all the town mayors, try to bring the public works. We've invited the superintendents. We have a quarterly meeting with everybody. What can the county do to help you guys, or what can we do to give back to you, or to help with an initiative that you're working on, to try and build a better community? And I feel we've got a lot of positive results in the 3 meetings we've had.
Awesome.
And that's where some of this communications came from.
That is tremendous, and something that I'm working towards to replicate here in Effingham County, and any local leaders, public leaders, or economic development professionals, Chamber of Commerce that are on the webinar today or listen to this. Listen right there. Pause it, rewind a few minutes, listen to Bill again, and copy that. That is a tremendous thing you guys are doing, and it definitely shows from this presentation alone, and then the other initiatives that you have going on for the great things in Crawford County. Risa, the next question, I'm going to go to you, and I'm going to fold 2 questions together, if you'll allow me. One question from the chat and one that was sent in a direct message. So, are the communities working with a developer? How did the community decide which developer to work with? Was there an RFP in the process? And then from the chat, it's asking, how did the Tracy Cross study help? Did the study entice home builders? So how did you guys leverage that study? And then are you working with developers? How did you move through that process?
I'll answer the first question about a developer. I mentioned earlier that I had several meetings with Brittany Gibson, and sat down with her and just took pages and pages of notes. But one thing that I saw in their model was Moran development, and that was key. And it's been my experience, why reinvent the wheel?
Mhm.
And you know, you get what you pay for, right? And we needed it done quick. And we didn't need to be bidding and going through all that process. So sat down with Jared and other leaders and just kind of pointed in that direction. The village of Oblong, Bill talking with them, Hudsonville spoke with them. So we just saw something that worked and knew that we couldn't waste time on the bidding process, that we needed to move and move quickly. So Jared has been very instrumental in the data that he's given us. And then also the information from the TIF and the enterprise zones are things that we can use as a community for grants too, for that process to support that. The housing study really was an eye-opener to us about what kind of a developer we needed to attract. We needed to attract developers that built townhouses. Maybe it's a developer that does duplexes. We've contacted everybody. It could be a local builder. It could be somebody that's out of Indianapolis or the St. Louis area. We've talked to a variety of developers because it's not a one-stop fix, right? There's a lot of different things. And maybe, you know, we've had a couple instances where we would start talking to people and we would say, hey, it's just not a good fit for our community. Their objectives maybe weren't ours. So we have Bill Sanford, I can't give him enough credit, has gone through somewhat of a vetting process, and he and I will have calls and discuss some of that. And then we move them out to the villages. It's, you know, as Bill says, I can't stress how important communication is. And the community involvement meetings, we've had so many positive things come out of that. Even despite the tornado and people losing homes, we're doing this as a community.
That's awesome.
I want to add one more thing.
Please do. Thank you.
As Bill Sandiford was meeting with these developers, that was one thing that we heard from the majority of them was, do you have a housing study? And I don't think that the city had really thought that, you know, of that until we started hearing developers ask for it. And going along with that too, the city is in the process of upgrading our comprehensive plan, which is another idea for communities to consider, because grant opportunities, for one, it will assist in that. Almost all of the grant opportunities I'm looking at now want to see our comprehensive plan.
Awesome. Denise, thank you for complimenting Risa. And Risa, most certainly, you know, development, it doesn't stop at the corporate boundary or the county line or even the state line. And we've got to leverage whatever resources are made available. And that really shows the strength that you can have from good public-private partnerships. Tremendous. So, to expand on that too, additional question, and it was right at the end of your point there, Risa, with the public meetings and the feedback that you're getting from developers. But was there negative feedback from residents who felt like the city was subsidizing the lot sales, subsidizing the price of the lots for the residential development initiatives?
I'm going to say I think that was discussed. I think that was brought up at maybe a meeting or two, right, Denise? But I also think that we've taken the attitude here of let's just answer the questions, as Bill said, and realize that you're talking to a community that hasn't done this for decades, right? So all of this is new. Nobody really understands. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. We just want to figure it out for the community, and in responding in a way that is respectful and understanding. Will we fix every question or problem? No, but I think a lot of people can walk away with an understanding of it's for the overall good. And Denise, I know we had a meeting for, I think it was the enterprise zone. We had some questions on that. You have anything to add to that?
We had a large presence at our public hearing on our TIF 3, but I think that was there was just a lot of misconceptions and social media, unfortunately, can not only be helpful but detrimental. And false information, of course, always leads to more questions. So
Mhm.
I think that when in the process of a TIF, there's lots of there's letters that go out there. You notify homeowners and property owners within 750 feet, even if they're not in the TIF. Then you notify all the people in the TIF. And there was just a lot of misunderstanding about how that works. I received numerous phone calls and took care of a lot of it, beforehand, to explain to them that this was a good thing. So I think once it gets out there, the correct information, we've had no problems since. And I think I've even had phone calls now asking what can we do to improve our property.
Awesome. So having that consistent message, having that accurate information and articulating it to the community as a whole, and sometimes it's forest for the trees. That, I mean, as business and community leaders, especially appointed or elected public officials, you're in the thick of it and have a better understanding than somebody else may, because you're seeing it more often, you're researching and studying it. So that good communication, articulating it to the community and having a consistent message going out, definitely can see where that assists us with. And for you, you noted TIF 3 and the naming of TIF 3 and maybe losing the creativity. I say keep it simple. I like it. Name it TIF 3. It's 1, 2, 3. Maybe the next one you'll throw them for a loop and just do 5 and skip 4 and just keep them guessing. So
the first 2 are so long, I have to literally stop and think about what the names are. But TIF 3 rolls right off the tongue.
Well, we were throwing acronyms out there earlier, and I was trying to identify what they are because there are so many acronyms as well. But we're close to the hour. We're hitting about 11:30 here. We've got a lot of good questions, a lot of great conversation going on. We're going to keep on pushing forward. We hope that you can stay with us. If you can't, we definitely understand. We'll keep the recording and get it out to everybody next week, and it'll be available on the website as well. If you have additional questions, throw them in the chat. We'll go ahead and get them answered for you. We've got a good list still going on. We will have a hard stop at noon, but we're going to keep on pushing forward and really enjoying the conversation here. And I think the next question I'm going to throw to you, Bill. For communities contemplating a similar housing initiatives and coming from the countywide approach, maybe for this one here, what advice can you provide about things to definitely mimic, or things you've learned you would do differently? And I'm choosing you because of the leadership role that you had with the village, and then now the leadership role as a county as a whole.
So I kind of got to watch it all unfold, and you can ask the mayor at Oblong. 5 years ago, I was saying, hey, we need to look at buying this property. We need to look at buying this property. More than anything, just to control it, to allow him to quit selling off property so people had bigger yards. And we didn't do it because at that time we didn't have the need that we have today. We had a need, we just didn't know the need. The approach I like is that each city is doing their best to work it, and then the county is also trying to help with how they can. Things that we've learned along the way, timelines that we thought were quicker than aren't, getting things, infrastructure in. If we would have known some things a year ago, infrastructure could have already been in place in certain things. That it's always a what if, no matter what you do. What if? But I honestly think that the biggest what if is, if you don't do it, how do you know if it's going to work or not? One day somebody had to take a gamble, and we don't do it. What if we did? And you can ask that question all day long. And that's been the greatest thing. The city of Robinson's jumped on board. They put 2 feet on the ground. They're running full speed ahead. The city of Oblong, same thing. I went to the county board. I've got residential real estate background, and I look at 9 other board members that absolutely have no real estate background. I said, here's what we need to do. And they're all looking at me like, has this guy lost his mind? But it worked. And I sold them and showed them how it could help. And then to hear the other mayors and everybody come on board, hey, this could help all the communities. And most people don't know much about an enterprise zone. The more taxing bodies that are involved, the more square miles you have. So when we add other taxing bodies in, it gave us more square miles. So, and if you're into an enterprise zone, the Crawford County has our own, but our neighboring county, Jasper and Richland, they share an enterprise zone. So an enterprise zone just doesn't have to be directly to one county. So, working with the people across the county line, sometimes I visit with Jasper County quite regularly. Lawrence County, I visit with them. And there's things to learn from the others to know what to do going forward and what's worked. I was in the initial conversations with Dietrich at Oblong. I was still on the board when they came over and talked to us a long time ago about how to put this plan in action. So it's neat to be on the backside of it, watching it starting to unfold. I think we've got a lot of growing to do in the next 36 months, and I think it's going to be amazing when it's over. Awesome.
Well, I love that you noted to a group of people, and everybody has their own expertise, their own background to be able to pull from, and then really tapping in that human capital each other and pushing forward especially beyond outside the community. Sometimes we get lost within our own things and don't benchmark ourselves to other communities or see what other people are doing successful. And I've heard Diedrich, I've heard Brittany Gibson a lot. Brittany is a rock star and a half. I don't know if she's on here, but big props to her. Loved making the introduction to her and watching her really help and run with you guys as well. So do want to note in the chat, Sandy's got a question here, but Sandy also had provided a good little bit of information about URBA, and we'll encourage you to look at that through the chat and about the IDA, the Illinois Housing Development Authority, and the various aspects that they have there. Sandy's question, and maybe Teresa Marti will throw this to you first and go around the table here. But any plans for low income housing or permanent supportive housing?
Well, did I hit that right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. We right now I'm not saying we sure don't need low income housing. We need all housing. Right now, our goal with our acreage is to get homes and families in there, and then possibly with that TIF money that comes back to us, we can have other ways to invest. Back to what I was saying about all of our empty lots, homes taken down, structures taken down. Back to what Billy was saying about the enterprise zone, that is kind of our outlook on hoping that we can throw those lots into this enterprise zone and have some developers help us with duplexes or maybe some low income apartments or something like that. So at our TIF, not necessarily, but we do have that on the back burner to do because we know that that is in just as much need as anything else.
Awesome. Denise, anything to add? Or
we don't have any new plans for low income housing, and however the city is just it's been several years back. We have Barrington Farms, which is a subdivision that's based upon income, and we also now have I think it's Eagle. Is it Eagle Creek? Risa, does that sound right? Sugar Creek. What's the name of that? Sugar Creek Crossing.
Sugar Creek, yeah.
Yeah, that's the new it's
For senior low income housing.
Right. I'm not, do you know how many units are in that?
I want to say 50, maybe. They're not quite full yet.
Yeah, that sounds.
I think it's roughly 50, and it's 55 and older living.
Right. Yeah. I wasn't involved in that part as much, but the subdivision that we are doing right now, we are basically trying to attract those people to, again, like Risa said, with the young professionals, bring their families to town. The Hershey expansion, they're going to need, an additional 175 workers. We want people to come to Robinson, build a home, have their family here. We do have, we have several low income apartment units in town already. We just, at this time, no, we Robinson doesn't.
Bill or Risa, anything to add to that question?
I would say that low income housing, I don't know that there's any on the horizon because a lot of that is government backed, government funded. We've got Mako Management out of Robinson. They've got housing all over Southern Illinois. We've got a couple others that have a lot of low income apartments. I would say if there was money to be had there right now, they would probably be looking at adding them. I see as a housing, our greatest need is senior housing, in my honest opinion, duplexes, triplexes. You get to like the city of Oblong, and I know Hudsonville and Palestine, you've got widowed ladies that stay in the family home because there's nothing smaller for them to move to. If they could find something they're comfortable in, that now opens up that nice $150,000 to $200,000 home that a young professional or young family can move into.
Yes, sir.
But they have nowhere to go. And that's been a large topic of conversation in Oblong is we don't need a huge amount of them, but we need 10 of them. We need that senior housing that you could move there. Somebody's mowing your yard, somebody's maintaining it, and all you have to do is live there and enjoy your retired life.
And I would compliment you to say, the initiatives to better utilize the existing housing stock and to and almost change what consumer behavior has been over the last 10, 20 years, where you're seeing families once they become empty nesters, kids go off to school or start working and leave the house. They're not really transitioning to that forever home. They're staying where they're at. Kids do come back after college, live there a little longer. They're remodeling it, and that does strain the availability of that and the existing housing stock that and the availability for a younger family come in to get a reasonably priced, reasonably aged house that is a little larger, allow them to grow into it. So glad to hear those initiatives are being identified and that you guys are moving forward on them. What note previous?
Courtney, I wanted to add a dynamic that we have in Crawford County is, Marathon Refinery has a turnaround every year.
Yes.
And Bill, you know this as well as I do, that, it's not uncommon for the population in Crawford County to expand 800 to 1,000 once or twice a year. And that dramatically affects the available rental properties. So while we have a need for, there's low income, there's also that need for what we would call workforce housing and rental availability. Because I know several people that have come here to work turnaround, and they'll come back a couple, 3 years later and bring their families and live.
Yeah.
So that's not uncommon, but that is a real problem we have from the rental perspective. Bill, you want to expound on that just a little bit from your experience?
Yeah, and it kind of throws our rental rates off because what normally would rent for $500 to $600 a month, a guy will leave it sit empty for 10 months out of the year and rent it 2 months and make the same off turnaround.
Wow.
So sometimes that housing, it really throws that bubble off of, hey, here's our normal housing pattern. I mean, at one time I owned a building that sat empty, only 4 turnaround housing. We had 19 apartments in it. It sat empty 10 months out of the year, waiting for that to come along. And it paid for itself just like a normal rental. And that's why we have such a hard time on rentals in Crawford County. And then Marathon, I mean, they come in usually and they'll bring their interns in for the summer. Well, they need a short term, they need a 90-day rental for 20 to 50 interns. So that can really have an effect on that as well.
So definitely some unique challenges that happen there in Crawford County in the city of Robinson, and does affect the the region as a whole, especially for hotel stays and campgrounds. And I think most certainly there's a lot of benefit to it too, of economic boost during those turnaround times too. Previously for one of the monthly webinars, we've done housing development, housing residential development initiatives, and had the city of Paris present on what they've done with their Maple Ridge 1, their Maple Ridge 2, which are income eligible housing that are duplexes and for families and seniors. And then they had a 100-plus-year-old high school that was rehabilitated into senior housing. And so I know the mayor of the city of Paris up there has always had an open invitation. If anybody wants to come and see what those facilities look like or what that housing looks like, be more than welcome to take you around the town and show you, especially if you're somebody to share what are initiatives that you guys are working through in Crawford County specifically, but then anybody else that's listening to this, encourage you to investigate, do your due diligence. What have other communities done? I mean, you're doing great here listening to this one, but reach outside of your typical boundaries, your typical networks, and to really investigate things to push forward. A big thing here is local advocates, and one of the best messages I think from this webinar is the definition of community. And I love using the word community because there again, nothing stops at that village border, nothing stops at that city border, nothing stops at the county border too. I mean, a community as a whole, and it really seems like a community is the definition of Crawford County. And then to be able to push this forward and have that communications with your constituents, with your residents, with your workforce, 20% are coming in from outside the immediate area, as Risa noted previously. How did you identify those local advocates for these new housing developments, and how did you find the ones that didn't step up right away or didn't come to you? How did you guys identify these people to work with throughout the community? Risa, you want to jump on that one?
Well, I'm going to give credit to Sanford, Bill Sanford. I guess he's not on here, so we'll talk about him. He just got on the phone and started making calls. I gave him a few people that I knew from my work experience. And, one call led to another call. The other thing that whenever you're doing a project like this, who do you know? Who do you know that, and who do they know? Mm-hmm. And maybe, somebody that's retired, but they've worked with somebody else. We went to Vincent's and saw some of the projects that were there, some of the projects in Indianapolis, and just started doing the homework, right? Those things that were successes and defining them. Bill has a lot of bank resources, so he tapped into those. Honestly, just a lot of calls and vetting those people who they knew, and then seeing the end result timeline, talking frankly about their barriers and relating those to ours, because our community is different than those that they built in. So we did a lot of homework early on to find developers and identify those. Denise, did you have something on that?
Yeah, we discussed best practices, and one of the things I had noted was asking for assistance from those who have been through the process. Just like Robinson did with Diederich, to figure out how they did this, buying land and selling lots, and just like Risa's talking about Bill Sanford at the bank, he knows other bankers, he knows developers, mm-hmm. because they see mm-hmm. that. So, asking assistance from those who have been through it is how you do it.
Tremendous.
And on
Go
that
ahead, Bill.
Wait, Courtney.
Yes, sir.
At Oblong, we took a small approach, and I bring Oblong up because I live there, so it made it a little different. When we was starting the process there, we actually started a community involvement group that we had both the local banks in Oblong. We had representation from them. We had an accountant. We had some other business leaders from there to help behind the scenes, try to start facilitating deals and We were actually even looking at building a house out there, and that's still not a done deal. It might happen depending on how many developers come in and what they're wanting to do. But to get that off the ground and going, and we basically built our own group of cheerleaders, I would say, wouldn't you, Mayor T? And had Dietrich come over and talk to them to get them behind this so they understood the drive, the initiative, so that they had the positive talk on the street to tell others about it instead of the negative and then having to play catch up. They knew up front what was going on.
And
I would
if I
like-
can add to Bill's point there real quick, they put a group together of leaders, and Robinson's also sent out community surveys, which we're in the process of getting back to assess what the residents want, what commuters would want to, what we can do as a community to assist those that live here and to get others to live here. And there again, free service, free resource through the Illinois Housing Development Authority.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask Denise. So if that was with the interaction through IDA, the Illinois Housing Development Authority, and how you guys are utilizing these programs. So right there is a perfect example. And you had noted that earlier, but I'm glad you reinforced that too.
And if anybody on here wants to take a look at those surveys, they're on our city website right now. You can go through a link or a QR code just to see what kind of questions are asked. So it's cityrobinson.com.
Cityrobinson.com.
Correct.
And where's the link at on the
It
website?
is right on the front page.
Right on the front page, and that question just came in through the chat, so perfect. To be able to see what those questions are on the community survey, and maybe we'll try to get a PDF or something of that, and add it as some of the supportive materials for this follow up of this webinar, and have on the website as well, just to help better converse this story that you guys are laying out for us here.
And you work with IDA to tailor it to your community.
Yes.
The example they gave me may have been the one from Effingham, but you tailor those questions, to your community to get the answers you need. Perfect.
Well, and even speaking, tailoring specific to a community, and recognizing that Crawford County is a border county. And so everybody on this webinar, you may be a border community as well, border to the state of Indiana, off the Illinois state line, and or you may be somewhere else in the state. Any challenges in responding to questions about the differences in property taxes or the cost of living between Indiana and Illinois?
So I'll take that one.
Thank you, Lisa.
Bill, then I'll flip it over to you. I mean, the cost of living, we're about 5 to 6% less. And it is a challenge. I will say it's a challenge.
Can you repeat that too? 5 to 6% less cost of living.
We are 5 to 6% less cost of living than our border communities in Indiana.
I just love hearing that.
Yeah. Thank you. I like it. So that is a challenge. And we hear that over and over again, but more often than the cost of living is something, but the main thing that we hear is you don't have housing or you don't have childcare. So these facilities do, those towns do. I think too, we are seeing more of a trend, hopefully people moving here because of the cost of fuel, right? The cost of travel is higher than it was, 4 or 5 years ago. Bill, do you have something to add to that?
No, in my world, we fight the property taxes all the time. People, I can buy a house, the taxes are cheaper there. They don't 100% always understand the other fees that are in Indiana versus Illinois. So that can be a long battle. We've asked questions. We called Sullivan, Indiana, and asked them questions about they're putting in a $14 million housing plan. What are you doing? How are you doing it? Rita was involved in that. We didn't get a whole lot of feedback. I know the city of Robinson was kind of involved in that as well. We didn't get a ton of feedback. They didn't want to tell us what they were doing. Not that they were hiding anything, but they knew we were direct competition because we're looking at housing. It's a serious deal here. And, the city of Robinson's already planning their next stage. Their enterprise zone already incorporates some areas that they're saying, hey, this is where we'd like some more growth later on. And if you're sitting there not looking, you're stagnant. I mean, when I sat down at the city of Oblong, I told the mayor we need to be identifying 2 or 3 more pieces, because if this takes off and it gets full, but you go back to the city of Oblong, well, it's been 23 years and there's not been any houses been built. You got to beat the stagnant. Things are going to change. Times are going to change. You've got to get through that. You know, the city of Robinson's not had any major housing developments in 20 years either. And people don't see the need. Well, there's no houses for sale, so there's no need. Well, because there's nothing to be built for people to move to open up housing.
Yeah. They say chance favors the prepared, and I think you spelled that out perfectly right there. That you've got to work towards it and be prepared to move forward. Got a couple questions left, 2 more questions. If there's anybody that still has a burning question or something's come up, please throw it in the chat. But we are coming up to the last few remaining minutes of the webinar. We're going to go ahead and run through these last 2 questions and then close it today. But one that came in through a direct message, and maybe to go back a little bit earlier in the conversation with the changeover with the refinery with Marathon is, does Marathon own any of the properties that are available to house its employees or to try to work with these changeover?
I would say very minimal. Risa, would you agree with that? They do own a few properties. A lot of times they do lease a lot of stuff. So we actually have our local hospital leases a fair amount. Marathon leases a fair amount. Hershey leases a fair amount. The problem with Marathon and the amount of housing they take, it can be very drastic. And it can go from 300 people that come in to, I've seen them have 12 to 1,500 people. So it depends on the size of their project and what they have going on at that time. I mean, if you come over here during a turnaround, Effingham will be sold out on motel rooms, or they will sell a bunch as well. Usually Crawford, Jasper, Richland, Clark, clear over into Indiana, Vincennes, Terre Haute. I mean, they'll drive an hour plus to get here to work.
And I think I said changeover earlier. It's turnaround.
Yep.
Turnaround.
Yep. It's we all call it local turnaround. You say that to somebody from outside of here, and they're like, "What's a turnaround?" It's a part of everyday life here.
Yes, sir. And thank you for the mercy there.
I've met with our business and industries on that very topic, Courtney. And, you know, the major theme I get from them is our expertise is not in rentals and houses. You know, we've got to stay focused on what we need to do, and we need you to help us do that. We'll bring the people here to help grow the city. So I think there's truth to that. And to Bill's point, I want to commend our industries. When we had the tornado go through, they had some empty homes, and they right away opened up homes to those that had lost their homes. So that was a blessing to have that, because so many people were homeless instantly without a place to go. And our business and industry said, hey, we have a home here. We're going to, or even their own employees. We've got some where their own employees are staying.
Thank you for sharing. And we'll jump into the last question here. And I think most appropriately for the last question to sum everything up, and we'll quickly go through everybody. Want to save just a minute for some closing announcements, but what would you do differently? You know, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently? And Risa, you're up on my screen right now, so we'll just start with you.
I'd start sooner.
Start sooner? Yeah.
I'd start sooner and have a plan. We just kind of kicked it off. You know, we didn't have a defined plan. We just started doing. So I would start sooner. What about you, Denise?
I think there's a lot of things.
Just keep moving forward.
Yeah, this was really our first go of it. And like I expressed earlier, the amount of information and getting the correct information out there, especially when you start talking about residential, it scares people. You know, those letters that are required to go out are a lot of legal. Well, it's all legal jargon. And I heard that from a lot of people. They just didn't understand it. I think I'd almost put a letter in there with it that says, here's what this means.
Mhm. Articulate it, communicate it.
Right.
Do it to where I can understand it too. I mean, even
Yeah.
being an elected official or an appointed position or a public entity doesn't mean that you understand all that as
Right.
well.
And then
Yes.
I'd take the contact of me off of it and put somebody else, like maybe Risa or something on it.
I vote Bill, but that's just me.
I don't know. I had my fair share of those calls too, Denise.
Yeah.
Right there with you.
Yeah, we sent out, I don't know, 300 letters, and I probably had 299 phone calls. So,
And then Mayor T, and Bill, not to throw you last, but ladies first, most certainly. So Mayor T, anything different?
Not really. You know, I've been the mayor since 2017 and, you know, running pretty smoothly. And we kind of had an agreement that the village is not in the real estate business. We're in the running the village business. And then this came just like a tidal wave.
Mhm.
And, you know, I wish I knew more about it. It's just, I'm just thankful though that as we got in that little part of real estate business that we definitely know that there is a housing shortage and that we're going to be part of that. So, you know, my biggest thing is, you know, I wished I had known more, but I didn't know I was going to need to know more. And, you know, just to stay connected to all of your contacts and your county contacts. Like Billy said, the community involvement thing, it just constantly keeps us together and keeps us seeing each other at least quarterly. And there's always going to be something that you're thinking about too. And someone else may express it, and there you go. There's your new avenue. So
Most certainly.
don't get discouraged. Somebody's going through it somewhere. Just keep reaching out.
Bill, bring us home.
To be honest, maybe start a little sooner, but you know, I don't know that I would change anything. It's been a fun ride, and just enjoy it, run with it, take the opportunity while it's here. To be honest with you, it's in my seat. It's been neat to see how many locals, you know, our local banks that got involved whenever they heard of the housing projects. You know how they've stepped up to the plate and really been involved. Our local community, you know, Bill Sanford. He's not on here. I can pick on him as much as I'd love to give Bill a hard time. You know, you've got a private bank that's sending one of their employees out working on this for a county. It's crazy the amount of effort we've got from private industry to help with this, and I hope that others can take this and learn from it, run with it. There's growth going on all over the state. It just depends. We're lucky. We've got Hershey Marathon, but there's a lot of other things going on. I mean, there's a lot that you could do to create business, housing. My goal is to steal people from Indiana back to Illinois. We'll see how long. That's my goal.
I like it, Bill. I like it. And with that, we'll close the end of the webinar here in the Q&A session. Let me throw this back up here. And first and foremost, to our presenters today, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for educating us today. Thank you for walking us through not only the good things, but the difficulties that you guys have experienced and the ongoing initiatives. A very heartfelt thank you, most certainly, for giving us some insight to the things that are going on in Crawford County. We hope that you join us next month. We are scheduled for September 28th, going to be 10:30, the same time as the start of this one. And for the month of October, which is National Manufacturing Month, our September webinar is going to be a precursor to National Manufacturing Month, where we'll discuss manufacturing opportunities in South Central, Southeastern Illinois, detail the Business Navigator Alliance initiatives, and then review what the crucial role that manufacturing plays in our region. So hope that you join us for that one. We'll start getting information out. here on your screen, you have contact information for all the business navigators and for your various communities, or if you're in a community nearby, please reach out. Be more than welcome to try to help you or assist you. I want to make a quick note: the back to business grants, the restaurant and hotels grants are being paid out current. The creative arts, if you had submitted a creative arts application for the back to business grant and have not received communication via email, those communications should have went out whether you are awarded or denied. Please log back into the portal and check that. If you're awarded, there's no additional information needed now. Here in the coming weeks, they'll need some banking info about the grants. If you were denied, you do have the availability to appeal that, and we would encourage you to appeal that. And please reach out to the Community Navigator, the Business Navigator Alliance here in your respectable community. Thank you for joining us. Had a lot of fun today, and a wonderful presentation, and hope that everybody found it informative, and have a good weekend. Thank you.